You didn't just stumble onto this video. You were drawn here. Whether you realize it or not, something inside you, maybe a whisper, maybe a storm, has been reaching for something beyond logic. A knowing that doesn't come from books or facts. A pull that can't be explained but refuses to be ignored. And now, here you are, not by accident, but by alignment. What you're about to receive isn't surface-level wisdom. It's coded truth, delivered in a form your soul has quietly been asking for. These aren't just ideas. They're reminders, echoes from a deeper place in you that's been slowly waking up. You're standing at a threshold most people will never notice. But you saw the door, and now it's open. See, not everyone looks at the same world and sees the same reality. That's because reality isn't one size fits all. It's layered, dimensional, and most of it stays hidden until you're ready to see. Consciousness doesn't crash through barriers. It tunes into frequencies. And the moment your inner world quiets down enough, reality stops being random and starts becoming responsive. Ever noticed how you can read the same quote or hear the same message 100 times, but then suddenly one day it hits different, like it ignites something? It's not the message that changed. You did. Growth doesn't come from chasing more. It comes from shedding what blocks the view. Pain, when digested, becomes wisdom. Confusion, when held with presence, becomes clarity. And suddenly, what was once a wall becomes a window. The sacred doesn't hide to be mysterious. It hides to be protected, and you only start to see when your spiritual eyes begin adjusting to the dark. In stillness, in discomfort, in the raw moments, where the world feels like it's cracking, truth slips in, not as thunder, but as whispers. Most people try to outrun this awakening. They binge the books, chase the mentors, demand the signs. But the universe doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to readiness. And readiness doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from carrying less noise. When your mind becomes still enough to mirror the moment, you start to see what was always there. Not through intellect, but through presence. The path to deeper truths isn't up, it's inward, and every step you take into yourself strips away the masks, the certainty, the illusion of control, until something new emerges, a clarity that doesn't come from answers, but from simply being with what is. The signs that you're shifting, when old truths start to feel hollow, when what once fit feels too small. That's not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. The greatest teachers from ancient times knew, knowledge doesn't come to those who chase it. It comes to those who become a vessel strong enough to hold it. That vessel is you, and the way you prepare it isn't by accumulating more, but by releasing. Releasing false roles, outdated beliefs, inherited pain that never belonged to you, and in that clearing, secrets bloom. Not because they were hidden, because you finally had the stillness to hear them. We live in a world that worships the external. Followers, fame, status symbols, chasing reflections while ignoring the source. But the more you chase what's outside, the more disconnected you become from what's real inside. Because truth doesn't scream, it whispers. And most people are too loud to hear it. This awakening you're going through? It doesn't come with fanfare. It comes with friction. Because in order to rise, something first has to fall. And for many, that something is the carefully crafted version of themselves they thought they had to be. Let's be honest. You've played roles. You've worn masks. You've smiled when your spirit was screaming. Why? Because that's what survival looked like. But now, you're no longer surviving. You're remembering, and in that remembering comes loss. The loss of illusions, the death of who you thought you had to be. You'll feel it as restlessness, as emptiness. Like a hunger for something you can't quite name, and that hunger, that's your soul calling you home. But be warned, this journey doesn't offer guarantees, only mirrors, and those mirrors will reflect every unhealed corner of you, not to punish you, but to purify you. You'll be asked to face your shadows, to sit in silence with your pain, to stop numbing and start noticing. And when you do, something shifts. You begin to see your triggers not as flaws, but as maps. You realize your wounds are not where you're broken. They're where your light has been trying to escape. You learn that forgiveness isn't about others, it's about no longer drinking poison just to punish someone who's not even in the room anymore. And suddenly, the world starts to feel softer, not because it changed, but because you did. You see, awakening isn't an escape. It's a return, back to your intuition, back to your stillness, back to the truth that's been waiting patiently underneath all the noise. You'll stop looking for signs because you'll realize you are the sign. Your alignment, your energy, your presence speaks louder than anything outside of you ever could, and here's the most powerful part. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The job you once tolerated feels unbearable. The conversations you used to fake feel draining. The version of you that used to fit in feels like a costume that itches every time you put it on. That's not a midlife crisis. That's a soul awakening. You're not losing your mind. You're just finally hearing your soul clearly. So what now? You stop running. You stop forcing. You start listening to your body, to your energy, to the silence between the noise. Because in that space lives everything you've been searching for. Some people won't understand what's happening to you. They'll say you've changed, that you're different, that you're distant now. And you know what? They're not wrong. You have changed. You're not who you used to be, and that's the point. Because growth requires a kind of death. The death of who you were, the roles you played, the truths you swallowed just to keep the peace. You didn't come here to perform. You came here to transform. And not everyone will come with you. Some will cling to the older version of you, the agreeable one, the silent one, the version that kept their comfort above your truth. But you're not here to shrink anymore. You're here to expand. You don't owe anyone the version of you that made them feel more comfortable, but made you feel invisible. Let that sink in. Sometimes choosing yourself means disappointing others. Sometimes honoring your path means walking alone for a while. That's not selfish. That's sacred. And in the solitude, you'll find the most honest parts of yourself. You'll learn to trust your inner compass more than the voices around you. You'll stop chasing validation because your worth won't be up for negotiation anymore. You'll realize that peace isn't something you find. It's something you return to once you stop abandoning yourself. That's the heart of awakening. It's not about becoming something new. It's about remembering what you were before the world told you who to be. You'll remember the way your intuition spoke before it was drowned out. You'll remember the way your soul felt before it was censored. You'll remember what it meant to be whole, not perfect. And with that, remembering comes clarity. You'll notice how some people only loved you when you were small, when you dimmed your light to make theirs seem brighter. But now you're no longer asking for permission to shine. And sure, that light might scare people, but it will also free people. Because every time you show up as your full self, you give others silent permission to do the same. So don't shrink, don't water yourself down to be digestible. Don't apologize for your evolution. You weren't born to fit in. You were born to wake up and awakening. It's not always beautiful. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's brutal. Sometimes it looks like crying on the floor at 2 a.m., wondering if your life is falling apart, when in truth it's finally falling into place. That ache in your chest? That's not something wrong. That's something real. That's the cost of rebirth. That's the price of remembering who you are beneath the programming. And if you're feeling lost right now, if nothing makes sense anymore, Good. Because before you rebuild a life that's true, you have to tear down the one that was built on lies. Keep going, keep shedding, keep surrendering. You're not broken, you're becoming. There comes a moment in awakening when you stop trying to go back to the old life, back to who you were, back to the comfort of pretending. You stop reaching for what used to soothe you, the distractions, the patterns, the people who loved you. For your silence, not your soul. You start to see it clearly now. You were never broken. You were buried beneath expectations, identities, noise, and little by little, you've been digging yourself out. No one may clap for you. There might be no applause, no gold stars, just the quiet knowing. You didn't abandon yourself this time. You stayed, through the fear, through the doubt, through the shaking hands and tired eyes and nights where you questioned everything. That's courage. Not the loud kind, not the one with speeches and fireworks, but the kind that whispers, "I'll try again tomorrow." The kind that sits with the pain, without numbing it. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. And in that quiet, sacred space, you begin to feel a different kind of strength. Not the armor you used to wear to survive, but the softness you're learning to carry to live. You realize that healing isn't about fixing yourself. It's about making peace with the parts you thought made you unlovable. It's about holding space for the version of you that had to harden just to stay alive, and gently letting them rest. You don't hate them, you thank them, because they got you here. But now, you're choosing something new, not survival, but presence, not performance, but truth. Not who you're supposed to be, but who you actually are. And maybe that version is still unfolding, still unsure, still trembling at the edges. That's okay. You're not here to be flawless. You're here to be whole. Let yourself grieve the life that no longer fits. Let yourself release the roles you outgrew. Let yourself mourn the comfort of pretending. Because when you let go of what you think you're supposed to be, you make space for what you actually are. And that's where the magic begins. The real kind, the grounded kind, the kind that doesn't sparkle but glows. Steady, warm, unapologetically true. No more masks, no more shrinking, no more betrayal of your own soul. You didn't come this far to turn back. You didn't crack open just to stay afraid of your light. Let it out, let it burn, let it heal. You're not lost. You're just remembering. And that remembering, it's not just for you. It's for everyone still trapped in the silence you broke free from. So keep walking, keep becoming, keep unfolding. You're not behind, you're not late, you're exactly on time. There's a moment in every awakening where you stop whispering and start speaking, where your truth, once shaky and unsure, begins to carry weight, not because it changed, but because you finally believed it mattered. You're no longer asking the world for permission to exist, no longer begging for space, no longer explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You've learned. Some people aren't meant to walk with you into this next chapter, not because they're bad, but because their version of you was tied to a past that no longer fits, and you're not going back. Not to appease, not to shrink, not to fit inside cages you were born to outgrow, because now, something inside you has shifted. You're no longer fueled by the need to be chosen. You are no longer starving for scraps of love you used to call enough. You've remembered your worth. And that changes everything. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It doesn't have to. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can survive your own truth, from holding the mirror steady, even when the reflection is raw, even when the truth costs you company, comfort, or certainty. You're not looking for ease anymore. You're looking for real. And real, it asks more of you. It asks for your honesty. It asks for your presence. It asks for the parts you've hidden, thinking they made you unlovable. But now you know better. You see the beauty in your scars, not as something to be erased, but honored. Every line a testimony to your becoming. You realize your softness is not a weakness. It's a power, a choice. The courage to remain open in a world that keeps asking you to harden. So you love differently now, more gently, more fully. Not from fear of being left, but from the joy of truly being there. You walk differently too, not rushing to arrive, not hustling to prove, because you've come to understand. Your presence is your power, your peace is your revolution. There is nothing more dangerous than a person who is no longer afraid of themselves, and that's who you are becoming. Not someone without fear, but someone who keeps showing up, even with it. Someone who no longer runs from their depth. Someone who chooses to live fully, even if it means standing alone for a while. Because you're no longer afraid of solitude. You've been in your own company, and you've made it a home. Sanctuary, not a prison. And from that place of wholeness, you no longer settle. Not for half-love, not for almosts, not for apologies without change. You no longer sacrifice your peace to be understood. You no longer shapeshift. To keep the room calm, you let people feel what they feel. You let life unfold how it needs to. You trust yourself enough to stop controlling every outcome. That's growth. That's healing. That's power, and it's yours now. So take it. Hold it gently. Carry it with grace. You've earned this, not because you were perfect, but because you stayed, because you kept choosing truth, even when it cost you comfort. This is your becoming, messy, honest, beautifully real, and it's only the beginning. There is a kind of strength that doesn't roar. It doesn't need to. It's not here to prove. It's just true. You feel it when you stop rushing to fix yourself. When you finally understand. Healing isn't a destination. It's how you walk. It's how you stay open in the places where you used to shut down. And now, you move through life with more intention, more breath. You pause before you respond. You listen, not just to others, but to yourself. You've come to recognize the difference between noise and wisdom, between urgency and alignment, between what feels good in the moment and what's truly good for you. There's a sacredness in that, in being able to say, this doesn't feel like home anymore. And walking away, even when staying would be easier. You've stopped calling chaos passion. You've stopped mistaking adrenaline for love. You've learned that peace isn't boring, it's rare. And now, you protect it. You don't let just anyone into your life anymore. Not because you're cold, but because your energy is no longer up for negotiation. You've worked too hard to come home to yourself. You've had to untangle too many lies. You've had to unlearn love that taught you to abandon yourself. And now that you know better, you do better. You speak kinder to your body. You rest without guilt. You feel your feelings without labeling them as too much. You ask for help when you need it, because strength, you've learned, isn't isolation. It's connection, it's honesty. It's being able to say, I can't do this alone, without seeing that as weakness. You're rewriting the rules of what it means to be strong, of what it means to love, of what it means to live well. No more performative perfection. No more hiding behind roles. No more measuring your worth by how much you endure. You've outgrown that. Now, your definition of success looks different. It's not about status. It's not about applause. It's about alignment. It's about waking up in the morning and not dreading your own life. It's about having relationships where you feel seen, not managed. It's about being able to look in the mirror and not flinch. And no, not every day is easy. Not every step is graceful. But you are no longer betraying yourself to make others comfortable. And that's everything. Because once you stop abandoning yourself, the world starts to feel different. It's not always softer, but you are. You meet challenges with curiosity instead of panic. You respond rather than react. You trust that you can handle what comes because you've already survived what tried to break you. This is what it means to live awake, to carry your truth in your chest and let it guide you, to walk with your head high, even when your knees shake. You are becoming someone who can hold contradictions, grief and joy, loneliness and connection, hope and heartbreak, without shutting down. Because you finally understand, you don't have to choose between your heart and your strength. You can be both. And that changes everything. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be busy to be worthy. You don't need to be everything for everyone to be enough. Let that settle. Because maybe for the first time you're building a life that actually feels like it's yours. Not the one they expected. Not the one that looks best from the outside. Not the one that made everyone else comfortable. But the one that makes your soul exhale. And it's subtle at first. You notice you're not chasing anymore. Not scrambling for validation, not performing for love. You're just here. Present. Breathing. Whole. And that wholeness? It's not a reward. It's not something you earn by doing everything right. It's something you remember. Something that was always yours, buried under the noise. You are not your wounds. You are not your roles. You are not your productivity. You are a living, breathing miracle, and you're finally beginning to believe that. This isn't a return to some old version of you. It's not about getting back to who you used to be. No, it's about becoming someone new, someone who holds the wisdom of your past, but is no longer ruled by it. You're not erasing what happened. You're just not carrying it like you used to. Because healing didn't make you invincible. It made you honest about your limits, honest about your needs, honest about what you will and won't allow anymore. You now understand your softness is not a liability, your intuition is not a mistake, your boundaries are not up for debate. This is your life, your one, wild, sacred life. And you're done living it on autopilot. You're done settling for almost and calling it love. Done shrinking to fit into spaces you've outgrown. Done tolerating people who treat your presence like an obligation. Now, you move with clarity. You love with discernment. You rest without shame. You exist fully, wildly, unapologetically, as yourself. And it shows in the way you speak, in the way you listen, in the way you carry yourself like you belong, because you do. There's a quiet confidence now, not loud, not performative, just steady, certain, true. You've tasted what peace feels like, and you're not willing to give that up again. Not for anyone, not for approval, not for comfort, not even for the illusion of safety, because you finally know you are the safe place, and there is something sacred in that, in learning to be your own anchor, your own advocate, your own home. You're not healed because life stopped being hard. You're healed because you stopped abandoning yourself when it is. That's the difference. You meet the world as you are, with your scars, your softness, your truth. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to keep showing up. Because the real magic isn't in never falling. It's in rising. Again. And again, each time more rooted, more real, more you. And if that's not power, what is? You didn't rush it. You didn't force it. You didn't fake it. You lived it, every inch of it. The heavy parts, the hollow parts, the breaking and the rebuilding, the becoming. And now here you are. Not at the finish line. There's no such thing. But at a new beginning. One built on truth. One built on you. Because it's not about being unbreakable. It's about knowing you can bend without disappearing. It's not about never falling. It's about getting up without losing yourself. You've learned to trust your timing, to listen when your body says enough, to stay when it's safe, and walk away when it's not. You've made peace with the unknown. You've stopped begging life to make sense. Instead, you feel your way through it, moment by moment, and it's working. Not because everything is easy. Now, not because you're never afraid, but because you finally believe that whatever comes next, you can handle it. You've built a quiet kind of resilience, the kind that doesn't shout, doesn't push, doesn't need to prove anything, it just exists. Strong, gentle, steady. That's who you are now, and maybe you won't always see it. Maybe some days will still feel like survival. Maybe you'll forget your progress. Maybe you'll question your worth. But even then, especially then, remember this: you are already enough, already whole, already worthy of love, rest, and joy. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are, because you exist. This moment, it's yours, not owed to anyone, not measured by anyone else's standards. Yours. You can breathe here. You can soften here. You can grow here. You don't have to go back. You don't have to fix what's already gone. You don't have to explain yourself. To people who were never listening, this is your permission to move on, to choose peace, to choose you. And maybe the world won't understand it. Maybe it won't clap for your quiet healing. Maybe it won't see how much work it took just to feel okay again. That's fine, because you know what it cost to stay kind, what it took to keep believing, what it means to choose yourself again and again, without apology. And that is the victory. No fireworks, no spotlight, just truth, just you, wiser now, calmer now, ready, not perfect, not finished, but grounded, free, and deeply, finally, home.